Hello everybody, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Monica Sakhrani. We are looking at the third and final module on women and law, law relating to women and work in the course Legal Literacy. So now, why are we looking specifically at women workers? Because women workers are more vulnerable as compared to male workers. Also, we will be looking at the sexual harassment law which has come about and other laws which have been made to protect women. Most of the women actually, there is an increasing number of women who are employed today, and most of them are unprotected. Though the laws which are there, the labor laws which are there, apply equally to women, and there are certain laws like the Factories Act which has provisions that women should not be given arduous work and they should not be made to work during night. But still, women are increasingly outside the scope of protective labor, and the gender neutral labor laws sometimes work to a disadvantage where women is concerned. Now, the first labor law, which specifically also women by their nature require certain different types of laws or different type of protection, and gender neutral protection may not always work to the benefit of women. So one of the first laws which actually came about to specifying specifically to address the issue of women workers was the maternity benefit law. Now, it was passed earlier in Bombay, but after independence in 1961 the Maternity Benefit Act was brought. It extends to all establishments. This is the issue, that it extends to generally the organized sector where only 4% of the women are actually employed. So factory, mine, plantation, including establishment belonging to government, and where where women are employed in exhibition of equestrian, acrobatic and other performances, and shops and establishments employing more than 10 persons. It also, another caveat, that a woman should have worked in the particular establishment for at least 80 days in the last 12 months for her to get the benefit. It also does not apply to those women employees who are covered by the Employees State Insurance Act. Now, the Maternity Benefit Act was amended in 2017, and recently the new amendments have come into force. So the number of, so it has liberalized the regime. Women are given more benefits under the act. So earlier they were entitled to 12 weeks of maternity benefit or leave with pay during and before and after delivery. But now they are entitled to 26 weeks, out of which 8 weeks can precede the delivery and an expected date of delivery, and the remaining will be after delivery. But if she has more than 2 children, for the third delivery onwards, she'll get not more than 12 weeks, out of which 6 weeks will be before the delivery. Similarly, in the 2017 amendment, adoptive and commissioning mothers of surrogate children are also entitled to maternity benefit of 3 months. Also, if medical postnatal and natal confinement is not provided by the employer free of charge, then she gets a medical bonus of 1,000 rupees. In case of miscarriage, she gets leave. In case of tubectomy, she gets leave. In case of any illness due to pregnancy, delivery, premature birth of child, miscarriage, medical termination of pregnancy, she gets additional leave. Apart from that, for 1 month before she goes on leave, that's 6 weeks or 8 weeks, she should not be given arduous work. If she doesn't go on leave for that period of 6 weeks or 8 weeks prior to her expected date of delivery, also she should not be given any work which will adversely affect her health. It is also unlawful for a employer to terminate a woman's services because of her absence due to maternity leave, or change her conditions of work with regards to that. In case the nature of work permits the woman to work from home, the employer may allow her to do so after a period of maternity leave of over the period that she's allowed to, on such terms and conditions that they agree. So if she's entitled to 26 weeks of leave, after that also if she can work from home, the employer should permit her to do so. After she comes back from work, she should be given intervals of rest and time to actually feed her child. So that up to the age that the child, so nursing the child up to the age of 15 months of the child, and deduction cannot be made for reason of nursing break. And if the establishment has 50 or more employees, then there should be a creche facility, and the woman employee is entitled to 4 visits a day into the creche facility. Now, apart from the Maternity Benefit Act, another law which was passed was Equal Remuneration Act. The Equal Remuneration Act came about as a result of the directive principle which enjoins that there should be equal pay for equal work. So it's not just about remuneration, but it's also about other conditions of service. So one is that an employer cannot pay 2 workers of opposite sex different remuneration if they are doing similar work or same work. But if suppose the man is paid more and the woman is paid less, because as a result of this act, the man's wages will not be decreased, the woman's wages will be increased. So whoever is being paid higher, that wage has to be paid to all. The second provision that this act says is that it prohibits discrimination on recruitment, on any condition of service after recruitment like promotions, training, transfer, except where the employment of women in such work is prohibited or restricted under any law. So it prevents any post-recruitment. At the time of recruitment, there should be no discrimination between a man and a woman. If the woman is more qualified, she should be hired. And it should not be only on this question of gender that a woman is rejected. So that is something that the courts, that the law says. There have been many important judgments on this issue. One is Audrey DaCosta's case, where women stenographers were paid less than male stenographers. The court held that this amounted to violation of the Equal Remuneration Act, and ordered that that not only should she be paid more, but even the discrepancy, the amount of discrepancy over the years should be paid to her. Another case which is very interesting is the Nargish Mirza's case or ANDI case. There are 3 cases which are filed. The first case was there were difference in terms of conditions of employment between male pursers, flight pursers who are male, and air hostesses who are female. Air hostesses were retired earlier and they were terminated if they got married, and or if they had a first pregnancy within 4 years. If they got married within 4 years or their first pregnancy, the court upheld all the other discriminations except the first pregnancy. After that, in 2 other cases, the air hostesses went back to court and said that this, early retirement, especially as compared to flight pursers, amounts to discrimination. But the Supreme Court has upheld the difference principle. Now we come to the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. As we all know, there was this Bhamri Devi rape case which resulted in the Vishakha guidelines being passed. So Vishakha was a case which was filed in the Supreme Court of India, saying that sexual harassment at workplace is makes women very vulnerable and makes their employment a risk. And the Supreme Court had given certain guidelines and said that guidelines will operate till such time as a law is passed. So the Vishakha guidelines were passed in 1997, and the act came into force in December 2013. Now the act applies. It applies to all women irrespective of whether they are employed or not. The complaint has to be against a male employee. So sexual harassment of women at workplace means the man's workplace. So she files a complaint where the man is working, and the man has to be an employee. If I go to a bank and the bank manager or a bank staff sexually harasses me, then I file the complaint. Even if I've gone because of my work to the bank, then I have to file the case where the bank employee is working, so in the bank. So we'll look at now what is sexual harassment. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexually determined behavior, whether directly or by implication, which includes physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. Now what is really required is it should be a conduct of sexual nature, It should be unwelcome. Unwelcome means unwelcome to the woman, and it could be anything, because the last clause makes it very clear that it can amount to any other unwelcome physical, but unwelcome has to be, it's not so much the intention of the man as the opinion of the woman. That is what sexual harassment really relates to. Now, what is workplace is the next question. Yeah, this sexual harassment can be in the context of implied, what one calls quid pro quo. That is, if you do this, you will get a benefit. If you do this, if you don't do this, you will get there will be a detrimental treatment with regards to you. You will not get your promotion, or you will be transferred away. So that is known as quid pro quo, or you'll be thrown out of your job. So that is known as quid pro quo context. The other is where it creates a hostile work environment for her. So she's always pulled up, she's always harassed, she's given demeaning work. She's always she's made to sit in a place which is not very conducive. She's not given certain benefits that she would be otherwise entitled to, or humiliating conduct constituting a health and safety problem for her. So there are these two contexts under which sexual harassment can occur. An employee, as already stated, the employee is the person against whom the case is filed. So an employee need not be a permanent or a regular employee. It could be a temporary, ad hoc, daily wage, either contractual, or even a person who is working on a voluntary basis, a person who is a probationer, a trainee, apprentice, anyone who is there for work, whether the person is actually on a contract of employment or whether is being paid or not, is immaterial. The context has to be work. And then we look at what is a workplace. So all government undertakings are covered by this act. Any private sector organization or private venture, enterprise, institution, establishment, society, trust, NGO, any service provider carrying out commercial, professional, vocational, educational, entertainment, industrial, health, services or financial activities, including production, supply, sale and distribution or service, are covered by this act. So this act covers all kinds of establishments. Any place where a woman visits for work would also be covered by this act. So if suppose I've gone to my boss's office for work, that would also be workplace. If I've gone with my colleague to somebody else's office and my colleague sexually harasses me in the transport that we are using or in the other office, that would also be workplace. So there is an extended notion of workplace. Now, what happens when sexual harassment takes place? Every employment which has more than 10 employees has to set up what is known as an internal complaints committee. This has to be separate for each office or branch. The members include one presiding officer who has to be a senior woman employee and 2 employee nominees. It has to have 1 external member who is an NGO member, and at least half the members should be women. The term will be term of the period in which the committee operates will be 3 years. In cases where there are less than 10 employees or where the matter is against the employer, the matter will go before what is known as the local committee. The local committee has to be set up in each district by the government to investigate all these cases. It has to be headed by a woman who has experience in women's rights, 2 NGO members, 1 government officer from a block or ward level, and 1 officer from the Department of Social Welfare or Women and Child. Again, over here, half the members should be, at least half the members should be women, and the term is for 3 years. So these are the structures that are set up to look into complaints that come in. Apart from that, the employer also has certain duties. The primary duty of the employer is to provide a safe working environment for the woman. He has to set up an internal complaints committee wherever required, display the names prominently, everybody should know about it. There should be training programs and workshops on sensitization on sexual harassment. He should also facilitate, if a complaint is there, he should facilitate the committee in every way that they can hold the employee, and also see that the witnesses are able to attend. He should not send the witness away when the committee is holding an inquiry. So these are the, apart from that, in every way facilitating the committee, he has to also provide support to the woman who is the aggrieved person, the complainant. So if she wants to file a complaint then in the police, then he should assist her in every way which is possible in order so that she can get her justice. Suppose the sexual harassment, I've gone with regards to work to another office where I've been sexually harassed by the employee of that other office, then my employer should help me in filing an FIR, in ensuring that I file a complaint in the other office, and when I have to go there for the hearings, then provide me with that kind of support in order to go there. Now what happens after how do you make a complaint? A complaint has to be made in writing. If a woman is not able to write it, then the committee has to assist her in writing it. If she does not unable to make a complaint, then others are designated under the law who can make a complaint on her behalf. If there is nobody else, then a person who has knowledge about the complaint can file the complaint with the written consent of the woman. Now in the complaint all the details have to be mentioned, also the names of the witnesses and documentary evidence have to be given in support. A copy of the complaint has to be sent to the respondent within 7 days, and he has the time to file a reply within 10 days of receiving the complaint. After that the complaint, and plus he will give his list of witnesses, his documents. Then the complaint committee starts listening to the complaint. There are no lawyers will be allowed to be represented. A date will be fixed where all the witnesses will be called, and if a party refuses to come before the committee for 3 hearings, then a 15-day notice has to be given to the party, and then an ex parte order can be passed. Now at the time of the inquiry, both the sides have to be heard, and the principles of natural justice have to be followed. We all know what the principles of natural justice are. The first and foremost is that both the sides have to be given a fair hearing, they have to be given enough notice and an opportunity to be heard. The second aspect is that there should be no bias in the committee. If I am anyway interested in the case, if I am a witness to the case, I should not be sitting in the committee. So there should be total lack of bias. Settlements or conciliations can be done only if the woman requests. The committee cannot initiate a settlement in the case. And copy of the proceedings have to be given to both. Both the parties have a right to remain present throughout the inquiry. Sometimes a woman may feel threatened and may not want the man to remain present. In that case also, the copy of whatever the witness comes and deposes, copy has to be given to the man, and he has to be given the right to cross-examine the witness. That opportunity is integral to a fair hearing of the case and for following the principles of natural justice. The committee, both the local committee and the internal committee follow the same procedure. They have the right to summon any witness and enforce the attendance of any witness who refuses to come, or so they have the right to do that. They can ask for any document to be produced. They can ask the employer that suppose there is a woman is saying I was at this place and the man is saying she was not there or I was not there, then if the attendance register or the muster can prove what happened, whether they were there or not, then that should be, the committee can ask the employer to produce that and give the documents to the committee so that the committee can come to a just decision. Records have to be maintained, and if he is a permanent employee and he is governed by, the man is governed by any service regulations, then the inquiry has to be conducted as per the service regulations if it is under the labor or under the labor law. After the inquiry is completed, the committee gives its report to the employer, and both the parties have a right to file an appeal, and the employer gives a decision on the case. So you only give recommendations, the committee does not take the decision, it is the employer. And in the case of local complaints committee, or the local committee as it is now called, the local committee gives its report to the district officer, and the district officer takes a decision, and on the basis of the decision either party has to, both the parties have to get copies of the proceedings, the inquiry report and the recommendations, and can file an appeal. Either of them can file an appeal. Now during the inquiry, the committee has the power, on the request of the woman, to transfer her or the respondent to any other workplace, grant her leave over and above which she is entitled to, and give her any other relief that she wants. Apart from that, on her request, it can also be, the orders can be passed that she will not report her performance to the respondent and the respondent will not write a confidential report. In academic institutions, if there is a complaint, then the respondent should not supervise the woman's academic activity. Now, there are timelines under this act. A complaint has to be filed within 3 months of the last incident, but it can be extended to another 3 months by the committee. It can't be extended beyond that. If it has been going on in a sustained way for 3 years, then and the last incident took place 3 months back, then she can file it, and the committee will also look into the incident which happened 3 years back, because there's a linkage and there's a continuity. The inquiry report has to be submitted after the completion of the inquiry within 10 days, and the inquiry has to be completed within 90 days. The employer or the district officer has to take action within 60 days of submission of the report, and after that the appeal has to be filed within 90 days of the hearing of after the action has been taken. Now, what can the committee recommend? If the person is governed by any service rules or labor law, then the committee has to recommend that the employer take action for sexual harassment as a misconduct in accordance with the provisions of the service rules applicable. The other recommendation it can make is for deduction of compensation from the salary or wages of the employee. So, and has to be paid to the woman, the aggrieved woman. Now, if there are no service rules applicable in the case, then what are the recommendations that the committee can make? These recommendations include written apology, warning, reprimand, censure, withholding of promotion, withholding of pay rise or increments, terminating the respondent from service, undergoing a counseling session, or carrying out community service. If service regulations or labor laws are applicable, then the committee will not make recommendations. It will only say that action to be taken in accordance with the service provisions. But if it is not there in writing, then any of these can be given depending on the seriousness of the offense or the case, the decision that the committee comes to. Apart from that, compensation has to be calculated. Now, what is the basis for calculation of the compensation? The mental trauma, pain, suffering, emotional distress caused to the aggrieved woman, the loss of career opportunity, medical expenses, income and financial status of the respondent, and the feasibility of the payment in lump sum or in installments. Now, if the committee comes to a finding that the woman has made a false complaint, or that any of the witnesses has lied, the case, then they can recommend that the employer take action against the woman. But it does not mean that the woman, if she is not able to prove the case that it is a false case, only if it comes to a specific finding that it is a false case or a malicious complaint can it recommend action. The committee cannot take action. They have to recommend to the employer to take action. Now, the committee does not require a specific number of witnesses in order to take action against or to hold that a sexual harassment has been held. Even on the word of a woman, without any witnesses or without documentary proof, they can hold that. Lack of proof again may not make a person hold in favor of a woman, but it does not mean that the woman has made a false complaint. If there are records to be maintained, every employment has to bring out an annual report in which the details of what the committee has done has to be written. Every internal committee as well as local committee has to submit annual report to the district officer about the number of complaints received, the number of cases handled, what was the holding of the case, as well as if the case was handled within 90 days or not. RTI proceedings are not applicable to Sexual Harassment Act. The details of the names of either the woman or the respondent as well as the details of the case cannot be disclosed. At the most, what can be disclosed, and even in the annual reports, these names should not be disclosed. What can be disclosed is that a complaint was received and what was the justice done. So that is the only thing that can be disclosed. Apart from that, nothing can be disclosed even in an RTI. But here, of course, you have to write whether you found the person guilty, whether you held in favor of the complainant or not. If an ICC is not constituted, the employer will have to pay 50,000 rupees fine for any of the violations of any of the provisions of this act. 50,000 fine has to be paid. For a subsequent violation, double the amount of fine, as well as the employer's license can also be cancelled. Employer has to maintain records which can be inspected by the government. The duties of the district officer is to monitor the timely submission of the reports furnished by the committees and to take measures. So one is the monitoring role, and the other is to see what is required in order to create awareness on sexual harassment and the rights of the woman. So thank you very much. We've looked at the 3 laws which are related to women workers, and please look at the e-text which will give you more information on the subject. Thank you.